Is this a Xi Jinping who is grappling with the challenges of corruption or flailing after pushing through some of these appointments?
I think the more key issue is that it's a Xi Jinping who's dealing with a pretty difficult international environment. I mean, those two positions, the foreign minister and the defense minister, are pretty outward looking. They're looking at a world which, for China, is, kind of incredibly important because it's an enormous economic and political, sort of ally in many ways, but also an enormous problem, particularly the United States. Qin Gang had been ambassador briefly in the United States and reportedly fathered a child there with a Chinese national, but born in America, so therefore presumably American. Li Shunfu is a different kind of person because he had an enormous technical background. I mean, he was really a sort of engineer and technologist, and so really a technocrat. These are not political allies necessarily of Xi, so they're expendable, and they're not really high up in the hierarchy, but it creates uncertainty, of course, this sort of action.
Yeah, does it tell us anything that these were people who were handpicked and are said to have risen under Xi's leadership rather than under predecessors? From the outside world, it does make things look kind of unstable, but is that the right takeaway from this, from all of these developments?
Oh, yeah, these people are completely Xi's people, but they're Xi's sort of lower to mid-ranking people. They're not, they're kind of absolutely core allies around him. If this had been one of his Politburo Standing Committee, colleagues, well, then we would really be talking about, kind of fragmentation of the elite. And that is not apparently what's happening at the moment. What we're seeing is a fairly clunky system where, your appraisal will mean that you either continue in your job or get booted out unceremoniously. Both Qin Gang's case and Li's, they weren't given, there's been no real statement by the Chinese government, certainly in Li's case, about what's happening. And for Qin Gang, the weird thing was he sort of maintained positions like a state councillor after his, in inverted commas, removal. So these are sort of, kind of a bit messy. They don't seem very purposeful. They seem more accidental than deliberate.
Kerry, I just wonder if you add the messiness of some of these changes at the top of some of these ministries and government departments in China, along with what some would argue are policy missteps on things like COVID, for example, the reopening and the failure to build out the capacity around getting vaccines in arms, the hospital capacity there, but also missteps arguably on real estate, on technology and the crackdowns there, the soaring youth unemployment. You put all that together and you can make the argument that Xi Jinping is something of a paper tiger.
Well, the problem is it's a capacity issue. I mean, what you've got is this massive system centralized in one individual. And it's a bit like, you've got a concert and you've got the lead act, and then the lead act is totally reliant on the lead singer and no backup, right? So there's no backup for his performance. And I mean, that's sort of a structural problem. It will probably get worse as we go forward because he has to make all the decisions. No one really dares to do anything without, kind of making sure that he's comfortable with it. So, you've got this issue of someone who's got to have one bad day for there to be a big problem. And, it just has to be one bad day. He can't be on top form all the time. This is, I think, where we get some of these strange decisions from. It's too reliant on him.